I want you to think of the last mistake you made. Not per se a big one, a small one is okay. Like an email you sent too late, or something you forgot, or a stupid remark you made at work. Now, after this happened, what did you say to yourself? For many people it's something like, seriously? Ah, shit, not again. How hard can it be? Now just pause for a moment and consider. Would you ever say this to a friend who makes the same mistake? Or to your partner? Probably not. And yet when it's you, this tone feels normal. And that's a problem. As humans, we have multiple relationships with ourselves. If you constantly tell yourself, yeah, I'm okay, I guess, even when things are clearly messed up, you're dealing with your self-avoider. While if you constantly tell yourself, you're doing great, no matter what you have done, you met your inner mom. Then there's the voice that keeps repeating, not good enough, do better. That's also known as the inner tyrant. While finally, if you constantly tell yourself, you can do better, while respecting yourself for trying, you are hearing your inner CEO. Now, all voices have a role. The avoider shields you from discomfort, but leaves your problems unsolved. The mom makes you feel good, but doesn't always tell you what you need to hear. And the inner CEO constantly pushes you forward. But it's usually the inner tyrant that throws you off balance. So if you often feel the pressure to do more, to work harder, and to never slow down, you've probably met him. Which is where you should stop thinking, am I ever doing enough? And start thinking, why does it never feel enough? Let's apply this thinking to myself. For a long time, I thought I had a pretty balanced life, at least most of the time. On many days I felt confident, focused, motivated, being busy in my own world, working on my own projects. And when I finally would reach a goal, I would think, nice, that went well. But here's the thing, that feeling never lasted, because almost immediately after, my other voice would show up and say, okay, and now? What's next? Could you not have done that faster? This is just the beginning, right? So even on good days, there was a constant pressure to perform. And on bad days, my inner voice was brutal. Why can I never do something right? For once in my life. And that's when I realized that I did not just have a healthy ambition, but there was another voice in my head, an inner tyrant, which was constantly pushing me to do more, as never was ever enough. So, how do we develop an inner tyrant? That voice in your head that is constantly telling you, you're not good enough. For many people, it starts with insecurity. At some point in their life, they have learned the rule. I only have value if I contribute something. So even when things are objectively fine, your inner voice would jump in and tell you, you could do more. And suddenly they are pushing themselves, afraid of losing their value. For others, it comes from a conditional upbringing. They grew up with their parents telling them, you can do this better. Why is this a B, not an A? And even years later, these voices are still there, pushing them over their limits, even when they are already doing well. And sometimes it comes from a strong inner drive. And at first, that drive is healthy, as it helps you to reach some of your first successes. But once achievements become the only thing you have to offer, success stops being something you enjoy and turns into something you endlessly chase. And over time, the goal fades, but the pressure stays, feeding your inner tyrant. To simplify this, almost every inner tyrant, our inner voice that is questioning our self-worth, is driven by two questions. So pause for a moment and reflect. Question number one. Does your sense of worth depend on your performance? Meaning, when you're productive, you feel okay, but the moment things slow down, doubt creeps in. Okay? Question number two. When you fail or make a mistake, do you feel emotionally safe? Or does your system immediately go into alarm mode, panicking, overthinking, attacking yourself? If your self-worth is conditional and failure feels unsafe, you likely live under constant pressure. While if your self-worth is conditional without the fear of failure, you fall in the ambition trap. things are never enough. If your self-worth doesn't feel conditional but failure feels unacceptable, anxiety takes over, and only if your worth doesn't depend on performance and you feel allowed to fail, you have a chance to loosen the grip of your inner tyrant. But wherever you land, your inner tyrant is always doing the same thing. It's trying to knock you off balance, either by pushing you harder or by triggering your self-doubt. Which leads us to question, is there not a way to handle our inner tyrant without losing our inner drive? If I reflect on this for myself, there was a long period in my life where my critical inner voice, my inner tyrant, was constantly pushing me to do more, having a very high self-criticism and almost no self-support. A big part of that was shaped by my environment. In high school, I wasn't necessarily the most popular guy in class. And later, during my student years, I found myself surrounded by people who were extremely ambitious and highly educated. And consciously or unconsciously, that sometimes made me feel less. Like I constantly had something to prove. So I started pushing myself. First, moving from a bachelor's degree to getting a master's degree. Then working in a consulting environment, trying to prove myself to others. And from there I was slaving myself to achieve even higher goals. Until I slowly started realizing that this really doesn't make sense. Because why do I need to prove myself to my friends? And even so, you can always find another benchmark, another comparison, another reason to feel not enough. And that's when it became clear to me that no amount of external achievement was going to fix my internal problems. What I actually needed was more inner work to finally feel okay with myself. So, how to solve this? How do you disarm your inner tyrant, your critical inner voice, and build a happier and more successful life? Here's what most people get wrong. You don't disarm your inner tyrant by fighting it directly. Because the more you fight your self-doubt, the stronger it becomes. Or differently said, everything you give attention will grow. Instead, you disarm your critical inner voice by removing the conditions that keep it alive. The first step is to make your self-worth feel less conditional. If you only feel value when you're contributing something, your inner critic has a clear job. It needs to push and pressure you and never let you rest, because only if you perform something, your body gets a reward. So, what you need to learn and experience is that you also have value without this constant pressure, which can be proven in at least 3 different ways. Firstly, observe your environment and spend time around people who perform well without working non-stop like a machine. Secondly, change your behavior and allow yourself to take some rest without making up for the time later on. And thirdly, change your inner views and stop seeing productivity as the only measure of how well you are doing. For me, this meant spending more time with people who dare to close their laptop at 5 and still do great work, and sometimes also dare to close mine as well. And I also picked up things like yoga and creative work, which proved to me that not everything in life needs to be productive, and that it is allowed to sometimes just enjoy your life, just for the purpose of enjoying your life, while still feeling you have value. A second way to disarm your inner tyrant is to learn to feel safe with being imperfect. A lot of your critical inner voice is driven by fear. The fear that you're not fitting in when you're imperfect. Often that fear originates from early in life, with many people carrying memories from the past, where they were judged, ignored, or even bullied for being open about their weaknesses. So, their system learned a rule. Being imperfect isn't safe. But most of the time, that fear is biased and way overdue, as most humans are truly good. But the only way to prove that to yourself is through new evidence. So we need to rebuild this trust through small experiments. For example, what you can do is to make a small mistake at work and notice that nothing is collapsing. Or say something slightly wrong and just watch yourself correcting it. Or slow down just for a few days and see that life keeps on moving. And once you notice that imperfection is not directly punished, you start becoming kinder to yourself. And your inner tyrant will quiet down, which leaves more room to become a calmer, more confident, and genuinely more happier version of you. So, what is an area in your life where you're overperforming to secretly prove your self-worth? And in which area of your life are you still afraid to be imperfect? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I see you in the next one. Much love, Tom.